watching Hockey North. Karissa, so great to see you, buddy. We have so much to talk about. The playoff race is heating up. There was a lot of hockey. Let's just start. Favorite moment of the week?
I got to go to Riza Veneshova, and we got to talk about her Gordie Howe hat trick. She had, the first fight in the league with Jill Saunier. Wasn't technically a fight if you look at the penalties, but let's be real, that was the first PWHL fight, right? That's a talker. An assist, and then of course the big goal, tying the game with 3 seconds left for her team. And obviously they didn't win. They didn't get the 2 points, but hey, they stole a point from Boston. And if Ottawa wants to climb out of the basement and into a playoff spot, that is the kind of energy they need. She's been a star for them. I'm going to give it to T, as her teammates call her this week.
T. Yeah, that fight was seen everywhere, eh? Just Jill Saunier's face everywhere. Loved it. I got to give some love to Emily Clark because I don't think we've given a lot of love to Ottawa, and she just was stand out, right? She's riding a 5-game point streak, longest in the league, and a good Sasky girl. I was happy to see her just have such a dominant week.
Yeah, that's what Ottawa really needs, I think, is just someone to take the reins and drive them forward, and Emily Clark has been fantastic for them.
Let's talk about the Sceptres because they have turned it around. I mean, we knew that they were playing well, and Troy Ryan was saying, I'm really liking what I'm seeing, but this is kind of a little reminiscent of last year, no?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's definitely the confidence. When we look at Kristen Campbell, we saw her start a little bit slow last year, and I think of that first win over Montreal in the shootout as the turning point for her. And then the team starts getting more confidence in front of her. They're playing good in front of her, and then she's just flying. I think you've kind of seen a little bit of that from her over the last couple of games. She's just feeling good about her game. And I think we've seen that confidence bleed into the power play as well. The Toronto power play is insane. They've been clicking it at about a 33% rate all season long. But if you zoom in, Anastasia, into the last 8 games, of course, they've won the last 6, but they've had points in the last 8. And they're clicking at a 50% rate on the power play. This is a stat that I thought was pretty cool, Anastasia. Toronto, going back to last season, never lost a game in February. I don't know what it is, if it's Valentine's Day, if you've got something in the water there in Toronto, but it's working for them.
Well, I'm in Toronto, so I'll let you know what's in the water. Well, we've talked about how quickly things can change in this league, being 6 teams deep. Let's take a quick look at the standings. Montreal, of course, in first place with 34 points. New York rounding out that 6th space with 21 points, Karissa. How do you think New York can get out of the basement?
I would use the clenched teeth emoji on this one, Anastasia. I don't know. Anything is possible, but they're going to need some run support outside of their big 3 in Sarah Fillier, Alex Carpenter, and Jessie Eldridge, and Ella Shelton as well. And, to be fair to New York, they put up almost 40 shots in their last game. And I don't think that they've looked terrible in some of these losses. They've had some really good opportunities and from, the slot too, high quality opportunities, but they're just not going in. And also, obviously, they were missing Alex Carpenter for part of that time. But on the other side of the coin, the goaltending hasn't been quite where they're used to it being in New York, with somebody like Corrine Schroeder. The last couple of games she's played, I think, have been a little bit uncharacteristic for her. So they need that to improve. And then they just need some depth, I think, on that team to step up and start making those shots go in the net. Easier said than done, I guess.
Yeah, easier said than done. As we say, head down, stick up. That's how we play hockey. But let's talk about Ottawa. I mean, they've seen a little bit of a jockey in position. They're 4 points out of a playoff spot. Do you think the Ottawa Charge fans are going to see some playoff hockey this year?
Ottawa's one of those teams that I think if they squeak into the playoffs, they could be a really hard out. And I think we saw that in the last game against Montreal. They were really smothering. Montreal couldn't really get anything going, and that's the best team in the league. That's a really hard team to shut down. And they also have a goaltender in Emmerich Smashmeyer, who you do not want to face in the playoffs. I think that's a goalie who, when she gets hot, she's really hard to get a puck past. So I wouldn't count them out. And I think to get there, again, they just need to, find a way to score more. That's been an issue for Ottawa all season. It's, having a bit more success in the power play would go a long way. And Ottawa is one of those teams, again, that I think could squeak in. And that's the thing about the parity in this league is you could be the fourth place team going into the playoffs facing the first place team, and it could be anyone's series. And I think we saw that on the weekend.
Yes or no? You thinking they're going to squeak in, or perhaps having to sit this one out?
I'm gonna say yes.
I love a hot take, Karissa. Okay, let's have some fun. And I can't believe this, but the PWHL has only been around for 14 months. Okay, like the draft was in September 2023. Can we have fun now after a season, knowing what's changed? Like, let's redraft that inaugural year. Let's quickly just remind people who was, drafted first round. Of course, Taylor Heisey, the overwhelming favorite, goes to Minnesota. I don't think anyone was debating that. Erin Ambrose was drafted 6th for Montreal. What would you change, knowing what you know now, Karissa?
Well, like you said, Anastasia, I don't think anybody would change that first overall pick. Taylor Heisey, obviously, the playoff MVP for Minnesota, winning the first Walter Cup. Like, that's great. Hometown girl goes to her hometown team. No notes, nothing to change there. I think I would maybe shift around the defenders. We obviously saw a big run on defenders in that first round of the 2023 draft. And maybe with the power of hindsight, I do a little bit of shifting there. So at number 2, I've got Toronto taking Ella Shelton. I think she is one of the best defenders in the PWHL. I think in a year or two, we're going to be talking about her as the best defender in the world. She's got a fantastic shot. Of course, we saw her score the very first goal in PWHL history. And this revisionist history, hey, maybe she scores it for Toronto instead of New York. And then at number 4, with Ella Shelton gone to Toronto, I've got New York taking Erin Ambrose. Defender of the Year, as we know, played huge minutes for Montreal in all situations last season. And then at number 5, I've got Jocelyn Larocque going to Ottawa, which uniquely enough, that's where she is now. And we know that team has an awful lot of respect for what she brings on and off the ice. Head coach Carla McLeod used to play with her, and I think she's kind of fit like a glove on that team. And then at number 6, Anastasia, I've got Sophie Jakes moving into the first round and going to Montreal. We know she had a bit of a slow start, originally drafted by Boston, 10th overall, and then gets traded to Minnesota and ends up being a huge part of that team's Walter Cup run. So, and we also saw her have a pretty great season this year as well. Huge offensive quarterback on the power play. Obviously, Montreal would be missing having Erin Ambrose, but I think you can slide Sophie Jakes in as that, power play quarterback, and that's how I would redo it.
That's a good list. I mean, Ella Shelton and Erin Ambrose, Canada just has such an embarrassment of riches when it comes to defenders. Ella Shelton from Ingersoll, too. I mean, from Ontario. That'd be pretty sweet to wear a Sceptres jersey. But Erin Ambrose, this is my only thing. In my brain, she is a franchise player for Montreal, like all the way back to CWHL. So that one feels weird to me because I'm like, no, it just makes sense she's in Montreal. But that was a fun list, buddy. That was a fun list.
Yeah,
you know what you're talking about.
It is weird. It is weird. I agree with you. It's weird to think of these people wearing different jerseys. But let me just tell you this: Ella Shelton, Renata Fast. How about that for a top pairing for Toronto? That's scary, eh?
Scary. Scary. Hey, you know what's not going to be scary? Our next game, I'm going to be ringside March 1st, 2 p.m. puck drop. The Montreal Victoire are back at the Bell Center hosting the Boston Fleet. It's going to be a blast. Karissa, thanks so much. We're going to do this all again next week. It's been Hockey North.